It was last week when we sort of talked through, there was definitely all of us were sort of intact with the idea of how the lead character, the detective, is in her cellar in a room, in a more sort of sheltered inner world, and we also wanted to show another perspective of what audience sees beyond her room, which what the outer world might be. And there was this sort of interest of seeing there's a little bit of a dystopian feeling to it, but we don't know what it is and what would that be. And one of the material and texture that I was interested in was this dried lava. So it's one part of my rendering in the background. You see very, very slight difference and texture on the background, but those are the dried lava that I was hoping that will create some void blackness when we need to, but it could create some moments like maybe a fog coming through underneath her room, or filling the outer world, but then inside of her room is nothing. Um, it's not part of. Um, yeah, these are the images that I was looking at, and you see sort of a crack of a dry lava has sort of a red light coming through, and I kind of love the idea of there is a little bit of essence of this dry lava once a while, like there is like a breathing in and out. Um, we don't know when that moment will be, but it will be interesting to uh, give a feeling of sort of oppressed uh, from where we don't know. Um, there is also two images on the bottom where that will be showing sort of how much volume of messiness of your object in the room will take up the room. And what was really interesting is that how those two images, one with sort of the dirt and the other one is a water filled in, but these sort of really taking over that room, and you have a whole different emotional reaction from the room um, to start with. Um, and it would be nice to have sort of playground to the detective is going through as the story goes on. So those two are sort of the image of what these piles of items that will sort of become less and less as the story goes on.
Let me pull that up. Here we go.
Yeah, there's really, really tiny. It's very, very subtle, but then it would be nice to sort of slowly appear the butterfly on top of the lamp and project it on the wall. Mm-hmm. And then the butterfly sort of disappears.
Yeah. So in that way, I feel like you're bringing it was cool to see that you were bringing in some of these like projection ideas, and that had been something from our initial conversation that we were like, oh, I think Kristen and I had never really thought about this as like a play with projections. And so to start to see how you were thinking about that and how that would interact with this like very sort of realistic looking apartment space and take us out of that into some more, magical or dreamlike spaces, I think was really cool and exciting.
Yeah, I thought about sort of like escape room activity where we witness somebody goes into that room and finding the clues, and more the surprises, or that like, oh yes, okay, that's the clue, or there's a little hint of it. Maybe that might be exciting for us to see.
That's cool. And as we look at these renderings, like for the opening of the show, share it with us. So is what we're seeing below, like below the frame, you know, like, can you explain like how this is working in the
Yeah.
theatrical space a little bit?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I have a lot to figure it out still. Um, what I was interested in was not having the room directly sitting on the stage floor. So anything to sort of lift it up so that we're really feeling like she's sort of separated from outer world. And and there was also sort of interest of showing what's underneath that. And I think I still have a ways to go. Um, uh, but here my rendering is showing there is sort of an old car jack, um, is like sort of underneath the room, and we're also seeing a little bit of like the earth underneath it, what's holding to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so cool that you said carjack, because I had also thought of like when in our initial conversation when we talked about like, are there moments where it feels like it's like a projected, you know, where if we're projecting images, does it feel analog? Like, was this like a screen, you know, like a screen that
Hmm.
was, I was just really interested in how space was being represented, and yeah, what was going on with this like elevated
Yeah,
frame.
I was also interested in having like a really low fog, and if fog could come through underneath the room but not go into the room is interesting visually to me to add sort of spookiness, um, or just give us feel, uh, is this right? Or, you know, just questioning ourselves, um, what is, what's really going on.
I
Um,
love that. I think it would also really evoke the outside world of the play that's described so beautifully by the character, even though we don't, necessarily see that. I feel like the fog would really, I don't know, just do something for us in terms of what's going on outside the window.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that certainly tied into some of our dramaturgical conversations in the play's development too. Is like how do we, the audience, get the sense of the outside world? And I know that was something, Kristen, that you were working to think about, and it's interesting to see how a design could sort of like help that as well.
yeah.
What I really like about that door, the like shape of the door, window, the window that's in the door, is like it's almost like an eye, which to me kind of felt
Oh,
like the like surveillance, like the her idea of surveillance in this world, like being watched or being, you know, vulnerable. That felt kind of present in that shape.
mhm.
Well, and it seems like then too, when she goes to the door and looks out the window, but instead of it being like a peephole, which you might normally think of, that actually it's this sort of larger aperture, so that when there's nothing there outside, it also I think that creates a really interesting dramatic question about what is going on in the outside world, just even within the
Oh,
building.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things that the rendering really doesn't show is I'm not really intending to. I mean, no, I'm not really intending the whole room to be the blue. But I thought what I'm interested in is that sort of the dusty blue with maybe like a darker wood tone. Um, will be something I'm interested in. I thought I was interested in just sort of add some of this masculinity into that, but then like the door is still have a little bit of feminine, and there is a lot of mixture of that is interesting, and blinds will be like more brown tones, and um there is also sort of a vent. It's hard to see a little bit, but there's sort of vent cover. um it could be like a floor vent cover, or it could be the very top of the wall. I put like a little long skinny ones. Those could be also another
Here.
moments that like maybe like coming through. It's like a back wall, center back wall, like sort of the top portion. That could be another one. And then there is like wall mounted light sconces and lamps. So there is a lot of practicals, also creating shadows as well.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, great.
I know this has been such a pleasure, and I am so grateful to you for coming up with this amazing design and talking us through it.
This
And
was fun.
oh, it's so cool.